Pranams. Yes, I was literally, anyways, I can say that I'm reborn every single time that I come to various mission centers. If I did not have the opportunity to have these stalwarts in my life, possibly my brain would have been fried long back and I would have disappeared. So I'm extremely grateful to Pujya Gurudev, to Pujya Guruji, and all others who have been in this journey, very, very long journey, yes, together. So my salutations always to Pujya Gurudev before I begin this session. Before I actually start talking about chanting, and I will tell a little bit about interesting things about myself. Thank you for that introduction. But there are so many interesting aspects which I will, as we go along. But let's think about thinking. Thinking is essentially very interesting and powerful. So let's do a small experiment. If I can have somebody hold this mic, let's do that experiment. Can I get somebody to hold the mic? Yeah. Let's do the wonderful experiment. How thinking influences us, okay? All I would like you to do is take your two hands and right at the wrist, join it together and fold your hands like that. Now we all know this is a Namaskar Mudra, right? Now focus on the middle two fingers here. Some of you will have it equal and some of you will have one taller than the other. So if it's equal, shout out it's equal. Equal. For who it is unequal? For some of you, is it unequal? Yes. Which one is your taller finger? Left one. Please remember that, okay? Anybody else has? Yes. Which one is? Left one. So please remember that. And now you can remove your hands. And what we are going to do is take up any finger that you like, right or left, does not matter. Think that it's getting taller than the other, okay? Think that it is getting taller than the other. Understood? For all those equal. For the two people where the left is taller, either make it equal or reverse it. I leave it to you. Okay? Am I clear? Instructions are clear? Keep thinking, whichever finger, right or left, you can remove your hand. Perfect. And keep thinking, right or left, doesn't matter. And by the way, this is not hypnosis, and I do not own any powers of hypnosis here, okay? So keep thinking, and let's do it again. Let's do it again and check what is happening. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. How many of you were able to just shout out, yes, yes, yes? How many of you? Yes for you, yes for you, yes for you, yes for you. Right one is for you, Guruji. Right one, I can see it. Which one? Did it increase or not? Yes, yes, yes. Now, this experiment is a very interesting experiment. Actually, they took calipers and they measured the actual increase in the millimeter distance when this is happening. Now, why should this happen? It's definitely not hypnosis, okay? This is called psychoneurophysiology. Psycho, my mind, influences how my tracts in the brain go to my body. And any disease that we have, you know, my interest in this entire thing came from what is the root of the disease? Yes, I am not well, but why am I unwell? And that is called, and I like to call or speak it out as a rapper, psychoneurophysio-immunoendocrinology, okay? Psycho, neuro, physio, immunoendocrinology. Everything is an axis. Each of the axes impacts each other. So power of thinking, thank you. Power of thinking is extremely important. And when I started to learn about these experiments, and of course with my little background to spirituality as well, chanting has been one of the key factors for me as well as for all of you. So what today we will learn in this session is how chanting causes exceptional emotional regulation and changes, and I'm going to document it with some of my fancy instruments that I've brought for you. So I will show you how it is influencing the brain as well as your body, and then have some of the health benefits as well. So I feel very fortunate that Swamiji gave me this opportunity, because all of you are going to spread this knowledge to many, many, many more people. And younger the generation, they always like to know, why am I chanting? Why should I do this? What is it doing, right? So if we are able to give them a very strong, solid neuroscientific background, I'm sure they will not just do it because we are saying them to do, but they will do it by themselves. So that is it. So this is all that she spoke about, but very interesting couple of things in my life. My exposure to chanting is So this is the lab that we run in Dubai. We do some fantastic independent experiments, bridging science and spirituality. So we bring in a lot of people who are interested in spirituality, and we try and see how meditation is impacting the brain. So I did my own brain, so I call it my brain diary. So I had some turbulent times in my life, emotional upheavals, and very interesting to see what happened during that time to my own brain. So when I started to scan that, I realized, oh wow, if I am able to show this to other people, the changes happening in the brain, there would be a deep understanding and impact. So it all started again with my own journey. And my exposure to chanting is also very interesting. So many years back, me and my mom is sitting here. So my mom used to be working as a pharmacist in an institution where they would play Om Bhurbhuvasva, the Gayatri chanting. And I was unborn then, so she was carrying me. And that impression, I'm sure, is very powerful impression. So it sort of was there with me. So I became a 2-year-old child, not speaking anything. So they were very worried and afraid. Both of them are into medical fields. So they said, why is my child not speaking? What is wrong with the child? 2.5 years, not speaking anything. 3 years, not speaking. They went to a pediatrician, to an ENT, lots of doctors. The child is not speaking. Now, 3.5 is a big time, right? I mean, if your child does not speak, my mom had frenzies. And the doctor said, possibly what is happening is that you two are alone in the house. She's not listening enough stuff. So shift her somewhere where there is grandparents and there is a lot of noise and all that. So she quit the place where she was living in a small little town in Gujarat. And she moved me alone because obviously she could not go because of my father. And she put it in my grandparents' house. When I was in my grandparents' house, again, not speaking, so I would show every little thing. 3.5 years as a baby, I want to eat this, I will show it in the sign language. Everything would be a sign language until the time I started to speak. And when I started to speak, the first thing that I spoke was a complete Gayatri Mantra. So everybody was shocked that this baby is not speaking at all, and all of a sudden, when the speaking comes, it's only Gayatri Mantra. So Gayatri Mantra has been there from a long time with me, and I'm very blessed that this happened. By the way, we were complete atheists. Me, my mom, and my dad. Until about 17 years, until Puja Guruji came into our lives, or Chinmay Mission came into our life, total 100% atheists. So Gayatri Mantra did not mean anything to me at that point in time. We just knew, oh, okay, it's a Gayatri Mantra. But obviously, later on, as our lives unfolded, so many things happened, so many things changed. I can just say that essentially, we are only grateful and fortunate, and you all are as well, to be a part of this amazing human journey or spiritual journey in a human existence. So extremely this to it. Now, this is what we spoke about, that we keep working on how to bridge science and spirituality. Brain, I always say, it's my romance with the brain, because brain is like that. Now, when we talk about the brain, can you guess what is the number of the brain cells that we are dealing with in the brain? Just guess, a wild guess. How many number of brain cells that we have in a single brain? Shout out. Millions? You'll have to really go high. Billions? No, trillions, you'll have to come down a little bit. How much is that? Billions, yes. How many billions? 8 billion? Little more? Little more? No, little more. How much is that then? 18 million, little more. It's 100 billion neurons, okay, and trillions of synapses. If I were to draw a brain cell which looks like a little tiny axon and a neuron, this is how it looks. So let's do this, and this is how it looks. When I want to connect the tails of every single neuron or the brain cell, what kilometer range are we expecting? Now, 100 billion neurons, small little tail, it is 800,000 kilometers. I can go from here to Canada 2 times and come back. Now, 180,000 kilometers. So if this is the extent of the power that I hold, by the way, for kids between 0 to 3, each of the neuron connects to each other. It is called a synapse. The speed of growth of synapse is 7,500 per second. Per second, which means every single minute that you spend with a child, you are doing something to the child's brain. Isn't that an astronomical figure? It goes from 2,500 synapses growth per second to 7,500 synapses per second. Between 0 and 6, all your blueprints are laid. And that is the reason why influencing the children or doing something around the children, the impressions can be extremely set. So it's our job to catch them really young. All right, and that's what Gurudev also said, right? Catch them young. So brain is extremely powerful, but how are we born? That is something very, very interesting. There are essentially 3 brains that we hold currently. As I'm talking, I'm breathing, and my heart is also pumping. That's what I'm surviving, right? That is the survival brain right at the back of the brain. Then what happened was there was an evolution. So we have all evolved from these creepy, crawly creatures to what? What was our great-grandfathers? There were mammalians, there were apes, and then came the human beings. So in this evolution, there are 3 kinds of the brains that we still hold. So one is called the brain stem. By the way, a lot of people say, oh, it looks like you're sitting in a neurology classroom. No, brain is like a math, it's like mathematics. Once you know the formula, you know it all. Once you don't know the formula, you don't know it all. So don't worry, it is very simple, okay? Extremely simple. 3 brains. So there is a brain stem, and then there is a limbic cortex, also called the reptilian cortex, because we have come from there, and then there is a mammalian cortex, and then there is a neocortex. We are all human beings. We all can think. We all can discriminate, which is the very powerful faculty that is all coming from this neocortex. Okay? Just imagine how are the reptilians behaving. What is their behavior? What happens with their reptilian, this always fight, flight, and fear. They're always fearful, right? They're always going here and there. So reptilian brain is all about fight, flight, and fear. And then comes a little mammalian brain, which is about care, concern. It's more about taking care of, you'll see this in elephants. Have you ever observed an elephant? Try and go to a baby elephant. The elephant will knock you off because they have a very strong mammalian cortex or the limbic system. And then the neo-mammalian cortex, which is important for us human beings. All our planning, executive function, the way we operate, discrimination, empathy, intuition, the way I deliver something, my executive function, essentially all my powers are in the neocortex. And that is what is making me distinct from being an animal. So this is to show that animals have a very big, huge limbic system, but we humans have this prefrontal cortex. In the entire neocortex also, this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, is the key. It is like the gold. If one can explore that, open that up, the potentials of a human existence is unlimited. And that's why you will see my lab's name is also called Limitless, because all the limits are all essentially around here. The moment you try to understand this neocortex, open up the brain structures, everything is possible. Now, most people, when you talk to them or I see about 15 patients a day, essentially the one single thing that they are always scared about, there are 3, in fact, there was a study which was done, let me quote that study. Every single day, we think roughly around 50,000 thoughts a day. 50,000 thoughts a day is an average. But when the study was further done, they said there are only 3 types of the thoughts which we repeatedly think. Can you guess what 3 would that be? Only 3. And this was a very big study, so many participants. Anybody at the back also can shout out. There are 3 essentially factors which I kept on thinking and rethinking and thinking again. What could those be? Sorry? About the past? No. But 3, I would say 3 types of typical type of thinking. What would that be about? For example, one of them, I'll give a hint, one of them was about money or work. For survival, because you want to have the survival from here. This is your survival cortex, right? But one of them was money and work. Second was relationships. And the third one was health. So the people are always juggling the thoughts between these three important things. And yes, there was somebody who was talking about the past. That is because we are constantly firing. Most people, 80% of us, irrespective of the thing, we are constantly firing only in these circuits. We have very limited exposure to this part of the brain. All we keep on doing is survival, as you rightly mentioned. But survival, growth, and propagation. That was what the brain was meant for. And then what happened was, there is also something called evolution. That evolution is what we are exploring today from that neocortex. Okay? So let's see now what is. So this is what happens. That's the threat brain. Anything that comes to a lizard, what will it do? Go away, run away, fight, flight, or fear. Those are or freeze. These are the options which comes in the threat brain. Now, if one has a very developed neocortex, then your complex thinking comes in, reflection comes in, and then you start to quickly understand what is good and bad, understand what is wrong and right, and that is how the entire new evolution of the human cortex comes in, all right? So, but most people are stressed all the time, I mean, stress is such a buzzword right now. I come from Dubai. If you find one person who is unstressed, that will be a miracle. Every single patient talks to me about, I am stressed, I cannot sleep, I cannot do this. Stress is like a buzzword right now. I mean, essentially in the West also, I just read that in United States, a new pandemic is already there. Do you know what pandemic is there? Loneliness pandemic. Everybody is feeling lonely, So, and stress obviously is part of it. So people who have very well-developed prefrontal cortex can essentially have a very tight control of their thoughts and emotions. And hence, they can be unstressed. But people who don't have that have a weaker control of thoughts, emotions, and actions. So essentially, this is how we map. So I can know what is the part of the brain which is firing. So I can know exactly what part of the brain are you living with. Is it more limbic? Then what do I expect from you? What is it that is going to be there? I'm going to be always in the state of worry, state of threat, state of anxiety, state of fight. But if I am here, what am I going to be? I'm going to be sthita, pragna, I think. I'm going to be very, very calm. I'm going to be centered. I'm going to be having a knowledge base, which is coming from that prefrontal cortex. So this is how we map the brains, and I'm going to show you how we do that as well. But these are the four essential waves, which are I said neurology is maths, right? So there are four essential waves which are important in our daily existence. When I'm talking to you, I have a wave which is active right now. If a scan is put to me, I have a brain which will be a wave which is called beta. So beta is when I'm thinking or complexly solving a problem. I close my eyes and somebody is mapping my brain. What do I produce? Alpha. And we were just wondering in the experiment, how many people actually sit with their eyes closed in a single day? Normal people. I mean, you guys do exceptional prayers and everything, but it's so surprising that not even 5 minutes people spend producing this rhythm called alpha. And alpha is a very important rhythm for an entire functioning of the brain. When I go a little deeper, I want to go off to sleep. And just before I'm sleeping, I produce a rhythm called theta. Okay? And you must have heard, I'm sure, he's in a theta state or he's in a theta state. I'm sure lots of this about the theta. The time I fall off to sleep, it's delta. So these are the four essential waves which are very, very important, how we can know what is the brain function like. Now, very interesting thing, we did an experiment. So this is how we map, by the way. So this is the front part of the brain. This is, again, the front part of the brain. This is inside of the brain. And then we have these colored maps. Anything blue is low. Anything red is high. So based on the various types of the brains, we can know what is low, what is high, okay? Based on the actual waves. So if you look at, this is my brain, and these are the four waves which we mapped. So there is theta, there is alpha, there is beta, and there is high beta. If you look at the beta, you can see this red. Very high beta frontally. There's like almost, I think I had a cup of coffee also. So coffee is a stimulant and it can increase your beta. Now what we did after this taking the scan was, I just did one Brahmari. Do you guys do Brahmari? Humming bee technique? Do you want to do it? All of us can do it one time? Yeah. Let's sit straight. I'll just show you exactly what we did in that. All you do is take a nice deep breath, and then like a humming bee, you need to hum. Keep doing. Yes, some people also close their ear and then close their eyes, which is fine. You can just do it just like that also. One more time. Take a nice deep breath. This is exactly the experiment which we did. And now look at what happened to this high beta. The entire brain became red, right? You can see this. There was yellow is low and red is high. So I became super focused or super concentrated, just one single practice. And at the same time, alpha, which was blue, which means low, if you look at the alpha, it got again spread across. So I am relaxed and super focused, both at the same time, only one single practice of Brahmari. Isn't this amazing? No, let me show you one more time how it can be with the energy scanner. So let me show you my little energy scanner. I'll need one more volunteer who can do the Brahmari for me. Anyone volunteer? So this is an energy scanner. This is used, and I'll talk a little bit about energy because I cannot have a brain scan quickly, so I cannot show you that. Yes, please come. But I'm going to show you with the energy how the energy changes happens, okay? So first we're going to scan him just like that, and then he's going to do a Brahmari, and we will scan his energy. Energy, when I say it's like an aura, okay? It's like where is my physical self is beating at a certain frequency. It is going to give an energy body, and I can map that energy body. So this is how a lot of CBIs and even FBIs, etc., have been using these kind of techniques. So there's a lot of, even Vastu people, you will see there are lots of ways in which you can have different energies scanned. But today we are just going to pick up positive, and we're going to have the radius mapped. So we just put in the positive here. Very, very simple. This is an easy scanner. So if you guys also want to try, we will give you the chance as well. Would you mind standing there? So what we're going to do is stand like this, because otherwise we'll get his aura. So very simply, all I need to do is I need to put this across until the time it becomes negative like this, which means that is the end of his aura, okay? Until I keep getting a positive like this, that means his aura I'm still scanning, all right? So let's see what is your baseline, and then I would like you to chant one Brahmari, and then we will see again, all right? Ready? Generally, we do one Brahmari right now. This is if you want to stand on to a proper Brahmari. Okay, we will do 3 times. I will show it to you with Om. We'll use a bigger this because Om is even bigger than that, okay? So immediate, almost immediate expansion of the aura or expansion of the energy happens. It's very quick to demonstrate and very quick to see also. With the Om, we will do it with a little bit of a bigger instrument as well. All right, so very interesting. Only single thing is changing, such a huge impact on the brain. Now imagine if I'm doing it regularly, every single day, what will happen in the brain? I'll be using the least amount of energy and having the most focus and concentration, and that is the entire idea. And this was a scan which was my colleague's scan. This is what we did with meditation. Now I want you to focus on theta. If you remember, the theta is just before you fall off to sleep, a wave which comes in. There is a little bit of a theta here, right at the back. You can see the red blob here, right? And a little bit of beta, low beta, and a high theta. Now, only one single 5 minutes, all she's doing is a meditation. And just simply she's telling that my mind is limitless. She's not even doing any fancy thing. She's just closing her eyes and doing that. And exactly after 5 minutes, we monitor her theta. Look at what happened to the theta. Absolutely expanded, right? The entire brain is now wrapped in theta. Now, what are the benefits of having this theta state? Intuition, ability to discriminate the good and the bad that we were talking about, ability to feel the being, just like the state of you, who you are, ability to understand what is going on immediately. So lots of benefits when you are in that theta, the creativity, everything is multifold expanded once you are in that state of theta. This was a Harvard study which was done. They wanted to measure the limbic and the neocortex firing rate for people who meditated. And what they saw was, in the people with meditation, the limbic was firing low, which means they were not in a state of threat or fight, flight, fear. They were always beyond that. And this was a very popular Harvard study. Now, I showed you these are the layers that we have: physical body, astral body, energy body. There are instruments with which we can measure also what is the energy body or astral body. After we complete this, we will do one scan and then we can share it across everybody, because that will take a little time. How to understand or how it will impact even Om chanting or any chanting that you want, we can pick it up and do it. Now, this was also another aura scan that I had done. And I visited in Pune. I was in a place called, it was a CHEFR, Center for Higher Energy and Frequency Research. So they were doing this Kirlian photography. So I was quite interested. I said, let me check out what is happening. And this was many, many years back, before even my exposure to meditation. And then, of course, one of the teachers was also there along with me. So I got my scan and he got his scan. And look at my scan. So a beautiful Vibgyor or a nice picture of various colors is a great scan, good energy, good scan. And look at this, what you have here. And look at my scan here. So there were so many white spots and that was not unclear. And then that struck me. I said, oh my God, at least I can change my energy. If I'm looking at the energy, I need to do something about it. So these are all now old techniques. Now with our fancy gadgets, we have even better chances of doing an aura scan or doing, if any of you have an iPhone, there are very simple apps called Orla or something where we can check it. It's very important for people who don't believe in all this to show them to believe what shift you can do it. And once you have the shift, there are so many beautiful things that you can do. Now, for example, this is a very quick Orla scan. And quite interesting to know when you are doing your spiritual practices to understand how your evolution of the energies, etc. is happening. Very simple. So this is the scan that I'm talking to you about. I have it here. It shows all the 7 chakras. We did 2 experiments with this. So we had somebody in Dubai and we had somebody in Ahmedabad. So the guy in Ahmedabad, so when I did my scan, let's assume that this is my scan. My crown chakra and forehead chakra was low. There are 7 chakras, by the way. It all starts with the crown, then comes to the Agna chakra, comes to throat, comes to heart, then comes to navel, and then comes to the last one, that is your Mooladhara chakra. Yes, so out of all the 7 here, so let's assume mine was this chakra. So I was sitting in Dubai, and in Ahmedabad, the person will do a distant healing and also give energy to, let's say, my crown chakra. And then 5 minutes he did that, and we repeated the findings. There was an absolute 100% tick in the chakra, which happened only by visualization and his distant healing. So all this, what I mean to say, is so powerful, and we can document it in today's time, how important it is for us to feel for others. How important is it for us to feel for the entire creation, or because it's finally impacting us as well. It's like an indirect or a direct this for our own existence. So essentially what we are checking by all this is quantum, and field of quantum is extremely interesting. I don't know how many of you have seen the movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? What the Bleep Do We Know? Has any of you watched that? Please watch it. It's free on YouTube. You don't have the YouTube, but I think it should be played. It should be played because it has a beautiful experiment which was done in quantum. So what they did was they put one slit, and then an electron was supposed to pass through that slit. So once the electron passed, and maybe I can show that if we have time, a very quick clip, I will show it to you. But this is a must-see experiment, okay? So when the electron passed through one slit, it caused a impact on the other side as a single slit. When there were two slits, the electron made an impact of going through two sides. The moment the electron was observed and watched, it changed its pattern. Electron, it became a wave. So from linear this, it changed and it became a wave. Now, imagine electron being observed with an electron microscope. It understood that there is an observer, and hence I changed. So this entire movie is about quantum resonance, quantum healing, quantum, the way we think as spirituality versus quantum science. So please see that, and it's a must-see. So all these gadgets and everything that we do, a little bit of quantum science also comes into it. And frequency essentially is the language of universe. So there are many benefits of chanting. There was a very famous experiment done by Emoto. Any of you aware about Emoto's experiments? The water experiment, yes. So what he showed was, when you talk to the water, so all he took was a little glass of water in each, and you gave love or compassion, gratitude, and then you study those crystals in the microscope. What happens in that is these beautiful designs that you see. And then if you have a music which is played, or if you are speaking words like you're a fool, I will kill you, etc., you have a completely different crystals which is there. And very simple to do even at home. You know, you just put a little jar and put 2 rice pellets, and then keep doing that to another 2 rice pellets. You say bad words and then you say good words. Automatically the next day, the one with the bad words will wither out. And this one will stay on for 3 to 4 days. So very simple. Now, if this was the experiment which was done on water, what are we? How much of water do we carry? 70 to 80% of water. And how much of the brain do we carry? Again, 70 to 80% is water. The brain is around a CSF, or a central fluid, centrocerebrospinal fluid. Each cell in the neuron that we were talking about has 80% water, cytoplasm. So if this has an impact, why not a chanting or saying anything which is to us have an impact? It's like an indirect this to it, right? A clue to it. So this was a study which was done for Om. It was a very big study. I'm going to leave these slides to you. That's why I've pulled up the abstract, because I want you guys to have a look at it at leisure. But I'm going to show you what this experiment showed, okay? This was done with Om chanting and using the quantitative analysis of the EEG that we just showed. So this is what happened. There were 2 sets of the experiment. In one set, people were chanting Om, and in the second set, people were listening to Om. And they wanted to know whether there is any difference or not. Whatever the red thing that you are seeing is high changes or excitation or rapid blood which is flowing pretty much across to all parts of the brain when the chanting is done. Okay, when the chanting is done. Passive listening, most parts of the brain also impacted except for low deactivation of limbic. So if you want to really have the effects of having an entire brain fired and a low limbic, all you need to do is chant Om. And what they showed was 5 minutes of chanting Om every single day. They showed a 66 days experiment, because 66 days is roughly what it takes to wire a circuit in the brain. So you have to keep on doing that. So 5 minutes for 66 days, they were able to show some permanent changes which happened in the limbic. So there was less firing of this limbic. The moment this gets reduced in life, all the problems partly get sorted, because now you are able to clearly see the things as is. So millions of neurons in the brain, and humming Om chanting creates a resonance patterns between different brain frequencies that foster long-term plasticity. We did an experiment for high achievers, successful people, high achievers, sports. We had one parachute diver who completed 28,000 jumps, and he is one of the top 0.01% of parachute divers in the world. We completed an experiment with a girl who climbed Burj Khalifa. She was standing on the top of Burj Khalifa. It was not this, she actually stood on Burj Khalifa. So we took these kind of people on the brain for the study of the brain. And what we found was very interesting. 3 things which makes us go to that level of evolution. One is both sides of your brain, right and left, should be synchronously firing. So my right and my left should have an equal firing, number 1. Number 2 is most parts of my brain, or association cortices that I have, all different parts, they should talk to each other. And the third most important part is I should have either a very high gamma. Did I speak about gamma? So after beta, very high frequency wave is a gamma wave. Most monks, most meditators, most saints, you will see a very high gamma which comes into them. All parts of the brain active, right and left asymmetry, and a very high gamma. And most part of the neocortex or the prefrontal cortex. I want you to remember at least this thing, because prefrontal cortex and limbic is all the game about neuroscience of anything that you do rests. So very high PFC activation in these people were found. It's not easy to do 28,000 jumps from a parachute and everything being successful, right? With 0 accident. It's almost never heard of. But when he does that parachute jump, he does not have this at all. It's completely a relaxed brain. It's a total synchrony, total in unison. All the brain cells are firing together, and that's how he's able to do it. Lots of stuff on Om, what has been completely studied, So some people have studied a repetition of a certain type. Some people have studied a variation of an Om. Some people have studied when you exhale, O becomes longer. What happens? You are awake. When becomes longer, then you are in a little bit of a theta, more deeper states of relaxation. So various techniques have been studied while recording the brain scan. And also techniques have been there for Gayatri Mantra. What is happening in the circuits? Gayatri Mantra has been shown to actually activate 3 different, again, areas of the brain very uniquely. So one of them is where you can have visualization. So people who have Gayatri Mantras can have profound powers of visualization, number 1. Number 2 is they also have a very thick, so actually structural changes have been seen, not functional, structure. So when they measured the structure, there is a big thickness of this which is seen. And then, of course, limbic deactivation. So once you go through all these repetitive trials and one after the other research, what we see is almost the same thing, but the message is that it is very, very powerful for us to go through and have these experiments. Now, I want to stress this one experiment which was done. This was done on a monk. It was, I think, a Buddhist monk, 10,000 hours of meditation, and how it impacted his brain, 10,000 hours. So A, what you're seeing is the monk's brain. B is a brain which is intermittently doing meditation. And C is a brain which has never been exposed to meditation. Now, let's follow the A. What happened in the set of the experiment was they were all called in. There was a bunch of people who have never meditated. There was a bunch of people who were irregular meditation, and then this monk. So 3 distinct groups. And they were asked to meditate for 5 minutes with all the brain scans and everything on to see what is happening in the brain. Now look at the A. What happened to the delta? All red, which means high delta everywhere. Theta, very high theta everywhere. Alpha was already baseline good, again high alpha. A little bit beta less on one side, right side, again high beta. A little bit of gamma here, entire gamma. And if you follow this, nothing much really changed. However, if you look at gamma, there was some gamma even in people who did not meditate regularly. Are you able to see this? Little bit of gamma here already for a monk. A little bit here obviously increased, but look at this. Nothing to full gamma. Nothing to more gamma. A little bit to more gamma. 5 minutes. Just simple 5 minutes. And when they statistically correlated this data, it was a very impactful change. So it was a statistically significant change in each of those brain structures which happened. This is mind-blowing, because if 5 minutes can do this, just imagine if our regular practice and everything, what happens to our brains? What happens? What are the changes that we anticipate? What is essentially happening is, yes, I am activating my prefrontal cortex, and what I'm closing down is also my superior here, right here. There is parietal lobe, and that is just helping me have the sense of being, or sense of just having as an existence, okay? So once, keep on meditation, these are the permanent changes which we see in the brain. If meditation is combined with chanting, exactly the same changes are seen, but the change happens faster. So very quickly, the change is ingrained in the brain scans. So that is, and very important when we are chanting. Let's do one little experiment. I want you to check your pulse. Pulse is very easy to check, by the way. You just go to your thumb, just follow the thumb here until the wrist, and then you will be able to catch your pulse. Once you catch your pulse, 15 seconds, measure it, and multiply it by 4. That becomes, are you able to catch it? So count for 15 seconds. I'll say, start. Stop. Whatever you got the number, multiply it with 4. Can I know what are the baselines? 64, 60, 26, 60. You multiplied by 4. Yeah, 100. So at 25, possibly you will not be here. How much? 70, 76, 78. Okay. We'll do some chanting, and we will immediately see the effect on the pulse. Okay. There is a very big nerve called vagus nerve. So vagus nerve starts right from here, carotid, and then goes all the way down. Most of the times when we are chanting, when we are meditating, we are activating that one nerve called vagus nerve. And its job is to reduce the heart rate, to decrease it, to decrease the blood pressure, and the change is almost instant. Okay? What do we want to chant? We can chant anything. Gayatri Mantra? Okay. Let's do a Gayatri Mantra, all of us, together, okay, in unison. And remember your pulse rates, huh? Because you're not changing other ones, you're changing only for yourself. Okay, so let's do a Gayatri chant. Om. Yo yo na prachodayat. Saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Om bhurvasvaha saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Om bhurvasvaha saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Om bhurvasvaha saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Om bhurvasvaha saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Om bhurvasvaha saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Om bhurvasvaha saviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yo na prachodayat. Excellent. Let's check your pulse again. And we can check one of these aura scanning also again. Anybody wants to come? Let's check the aura also. Where did we go until... Just imagine, how much of this will be. And we'll do for him also. I'm expecting that all the chakras would be almost close to 100. So that is the power of what chanting can bring us. Thank you. All right. So a very interesting other study was done with Om. A couple of studies, because these are very important for you to later on refer. So I've parked it in the slides. What was happening with in clinical practice. So when I ask a patient to do Om, any condition that the patient comes with, doesn't matter. Neurology, heart, gastro, irrespective. If I'm asking them to chant Om every single day, 5 minutes, I'm directly impacting the limbic system and the psycho, neuro, physio, immuno, endocrinology that we talked about. Anything, and I follow that patient for 3 months, I can have a significant hemodynamic, which means my measurements of the BP, pulse, and my outcome can be significantly impacted. But how many of us do in the clinical practice? So I think these are all very, very important also therapies because it works on vagus nerve stimulation. So I think roughly about 30% of you had a change. 30% of you had a change, which is what we see. If you do it properly, we can push that to 70%. If we are actually monitoring, properly doing the entire thing. Now, this is a very interesting scan, and that's why we wanted Guruji's scan also, because we can see all what is theta, beta, everything is going to be very high for him as well. So this was one of the scans of our teachers, and he teaches pranayam, meditation, about morning 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. This is his daily practice. He also does a lot of breathing practices. Ujjayi is one of them, or the victory breath. He also does a lot of anulom, vilom, lots of practices. And we did a scan. Look at his scan. Normally, I should see only green, okay? Normal people, if they are normal, by the way. If they're abnormal, some more things can be seen. But look at his scan. High delta, high theta, high beta all across, and a very high gamma. Normal people, we will not see this. Because of his practices and because of this, essentially, his brain is firing all together, or synchronous firing. It's all wrapped in gamma, and so much of a gamma is like, wow to have, because that means, and then he's like that. He's one of those walking encyclopedias. Any question that you ask him in neuroscience, he's basically a physics and a space science PhD. But anything that you ask in cognition, in neurology, in spirituality, anything, he'll just bring it out. So why is that possible? Because of the firing of these waves. Imagine, if we are exposing our children between 0 and 6, the rate of growth with that synapse, which we saw, what studies have shown is that you can essentially engineer any type of the child that you want. Engineer any type of the child based on the breathing practices that you teach them, the chanting practices, and staying in meditation. So I think it is our role, jointly, to get this across to many more parents, to make sure that we give them these kind of brains, because we don't want broken brains in this world, right? We want these kind of sharp brains. Now, this is one of my scans as well. There is a very interesting trial again which is done, which says, how do people learn? People learn very differently. But people who have alpha peaks, their alpha, we talked about alpha, right? When I close my eyes, I produce an alpha. If my alpha is peaking between 10 to 13, normal people 8 to 10, if it is peaking between 10 to 13, my ability to learn becomes faster. Ability to quickly understand things. Cognitive fluidity, this is what has been studied, or fluid intelligence. And that is what if you have a peak alpha. So if I measure all of your alpha peaks, I can know exactly how much would be your learning capabilities in any field, does not matter. So if you look at this here, 13 and 13. Now, by the way, this for me was 9. So by repetitive practice, and then I kept on monitoring, I said I wanted 13, 14, you know. And that is how I pushed it up, just to show that it's so much possible and so much easy to do. It's not difficult, only with chanting and sitting in meditation. That's it. So very simply, you can make these changes. There was a study which was done on something called the Sanskrit effect, because all of you are chanting Yajurveda, all the Vedic chanting, and this was done on Pandits who were performing these ceremonies and also Vedic chanting. So there was a guy from, I don't remember, I think he was from California. So he visited here, he studied some 25 Pandits, and he took a brain scan before, during his Yajurveda chanting, and post. And what he called, it was called the Sanskrit effect. So this was James Herschel. What he studied was that all these Pandits who were chanting Yajurveda had very interesting changes in these parts of the region. One of the region was hippocampus. When I want to remember something, I have to get the hippocampus for memory. Their hippocampuses were large, obviously because they were continuously remembering those chants. So I don't, in fact, even in London cab drivers, they have seen the hippocampus to be larger, because to navigate through the London roads, so London taxi drivers have higher hippocampus than any of us combined. That is what they've shown. And then the second region was this anterior cingulate, which is nothing but this limbic, which was also having the change. And then in the language and memory system, there was also a bigger change in that. So which means their ability to learn language, to comprehend, to understand, everything was way higher than the normal people. So this is how they showed the changes. There was also a thickness which was studied, and the thickness of these cortices was shown 15 times, much more than what a normal person can have. 15 times. So 15x, just simply they were doing their Sanskrit mantras. So this James Herschel thought, why should this be happening? You know, what is the reason? What is that particular thing in the Sanskrit chanting or in Vedic chanting? What is it that is making the change? Any ideas? What could be making the change? Sound vibration. Why? What would it do? Let me show you an example. I'm going to just skip this for a while and let me show you this. So if I'm chanting Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus, okay, this is what happens in the brain. I'm activating the parts of around here somewhere, okay? And if I'm just listening, this is what all of you will possibly have, this part of the brain here, right here, activated, and that is somewhere close to around this area, okay? So Santa Claus, Santa Claus, Santa Claus versus Amitabh chanting, Amitabh the thing. What is the difference? Why should it have inhibition or deactivation? This is very, very important to be low firing and increase of these. These are the two basically formulas for everything in the brain. If you have this, you're set. What would be happening? Is it the frequency? Is it the style of chanting? Is it the music? Is it because of the meditation, what they do along with it? What was happening? What do you think could be the reason why Sanskrit should have this effect? Sorry? Words. How? How would it matter? A Santa Claus is also a word. It has a form. What kind of a form? We see an image. That's right. That's a good way. But when you're chanting Yajurveda shlokas, what happens? Formless. Okay. That's a good point. What else must be happening? Just think a little deeper. Yes, a lot to do with the process in which you produce the sounds, because these are when you do these intonations. When you do the intonations, there is also the vagus nerve which comes into play. You're activating the vagus nerve. Also, when you're doing the typical Vedic chanting, there are certain ways where you stop. You stop and then you start. You stop and then you start. These are the variations in the rhythm is making the change in the brain. And all this was studied by the rishis, And then somebody talked about frequency. Each word has a significant frequency, which is matching or dematching to your brain's rhythm. So third is frequency. And what was the fourth thing that they found? Very interesting. I mean, this just blows my mind. Think a little deeper. What happens in Vedic chanting? What are the other things that you do? Breathing, yes. What is it, the breathing? The regulations, but that is again vagus nerve, because vagus nerve also has an influence on your breathing and also on your this. And he talked about the formlessness, because you're not Santa Claus, automatically a vision comes and then Santa Claus is there in our parietal. In the Vedic chanting, you're just formless, you're this. But there is one other thing which is very interesting. You find out. Okay, Google it. It's very interesting. Otherwise, I'll share it with you after 7 days, because you have to do the little effort. It is shown in one single, this paper only. So I'm going to share anyways these things. What it showed was there is also an increase in the functional connectivity between the parts of the region. Yajurveda. This was only on Yajurveda chanting. This of Pandits who were doing this. And very interestingly, all the volume, So they studied the volume of the brain right from somebody initiation into the Sanskrit chanting or Vedic chanting, and then going on. After a year and a half, 1.5 years, they found the maximum volume expansion. So that is also very interesting, because I think most of our courses, we keep on chanting, right? So 1.5 years when you have the maximum growth and volume of the brain. And then that continues. So a lot of these kind of stuff is available in a beautiful book, which is by Daniel Goleman, How Meditation is Changing the Mind, Brain, Body, How Chanting is Influencing the Mind, Brain, Body. It's just a very interesting way of understanding what rhythms are you changing. Majority of the people, as I said, are struggling in this limbic part of the brain. And if we are able to deactivate this part, and activate here, lot of changes. And then I want to grow the volume of this, and I want to stop firing this, and I want all the parts of the brain to connect. We all have heard about IQ. We all have heard about, EQ and SQ. What is the difference between the three? What is the difference between the three? IQ, intelligent quotient. So if there is a neuron A, there is a neuron B, and there is a neuron C. Okay, imagine that there are 3 brain cells. My neuron A is connecting to neuron B, and then my neuron B is connecting to C, and C is connecting to A. It has a linear correlation, intelligent quotient. Emotional quotient, my A fires and then it goes to B and then it comes back to A and then goes to C and then goes back to A. Non-linear firing, okay? Non-linear. What happens in SQ? Any guesses? What happens in SQ with a high SQ is I have my ABC, all of them are firing and all of them can connect to each other. Exponential and synchronous firing of the neurons when my SQ is on the higher side. The world is only gaga about this thing and little bit here right now about EQ. But if you have this, automatically all the brain functions that we just mentioned are immediately possible. Almost close to we can take your brains and say, okay, this is what are the changes which has happened. So it's that fast, okay? Do we want to do one more experiment with a Vedic chanting? Okay, which Vedic chanting should we take? Okay, so one person will again scan. I think it takes about 7 or 8 minutes for the scan effect to go away. Let's see if it has gone. Who wants to try? Come. Yeah, come. Anybody? We'll just check your pre-aura and then we do a post, okay? Did we finish about 8 minutes? Yeah, this will be my last demonstration. So have a seat. We'll just check your aura. So the last thing, was anybody of you able to guess? Because we chanted. Any of you now with the revised brain in mind, anything happened? Attentional focus awareness. Where was the awareness? Outside or inside? Inside, of course, inside. What else? Thoughtlessness. Okay. But then you are already chanting. Where is the thought coming from in the mind? Where is the mind, by the way? We never talked about the mind. We just talked about brain. So I have 5 minutes. Well, where is the mind? Where is the mind? Is it mind is inside the brain or outside the brain? What is mind? Across body. Yes, it is across, but what is mind? I can remove the brain and I dissect it, because that is what we do in the labs. I remove the brain, I cut and I see, yes, brain is fine. It is tangible, I can see it. What about mind? Subtle. But where? What is it doing? How do you, I think you have the definition of mind, right? We have the, what is that? Sankalpa, Vikalpa. So, can we say it is just a flow of thoughts? It is a continuous flow of thoughts. So somebody said it influenced thoughts. How did it change the thoughts? Because you have to think something. Even when you're chanting, doesn't your mind function at the background? What was it thinking? It has become single-pointed. It was very focused. So yes, there is something called the local mind and something called the non-local mind, and there is something called the total mind. Okay, what we were talking about is a local mind, which is in the body and the brain, and it can have a little bit of, and that is the reason why we see these auras, because the way we are thinking, we are generating these rhythms, and we measure the energy. And there is also something called the total mind, and then the non-local mind. Example of a non-local mind is very simple. What is that? Telepathy. I think of somebody, I think Raviji was telling me, yesterday only they wanted to call us, and here we are. That is the example of a non-local mind, because now we are connected. And then there is something called the Vishwa mind, right, or the total mind. So where is the connection? So what it allows us to do is get out from the local mind and then connect to the total mind. That is one of the important functions. And then somebody spoke about attentional awareness. It pulls us into inside or inner awareness, state of inner awareness. And then, of course, the effect on the vagus. What else? Anybody observed something very interesting also as you were chanting with the revised thing? What was the other thing? Yes, your mind became very calm. It is the property of it. Your thoughts, other thoughts, you know, what is she talking? All this is too confusing. It is very difficult to understand. All that vanished, right? That will vanish. And then one very important thing, what it led you to do was total mind. And one still subtle thing. I could see that. What was that happening? What happened when you were chanting? Yes, your body frame was very different. Right now, if you observe your body frame, you've all become like that, and then, you know, you've all become like that. Yes, because there is also something called the mind-body frame network. We call it the BMNF network. So what happens is anything in your mind starts to get calm, your spine automatically starts to remain still. The more you keep on chanting, the more sit and still that you can remain. So reverse, either or. You have to sit still so that your mind is centered and focused, and you can chant more, or more you chant, you automatically become sit and still. These are all physiological changes which we are not aware. We are not consciously aware of it, but so many things are happening at the background. Om, and thank you.